Sadly, once again, I'm having to come in front of you here and address one member of Congress in particular, and that person is Representative Eric Swalwell from California. Now, if you're like, who is Eric Swalwell? You don't know who Eric Swalwell is. Well, then you're probably one of, most people that don't know who Eric Swalwell is. But if you're someone that follows politics, especially politics related to the Second Amendment, then you might remember Eric Swalwell as the person who said, well, if the American citizens ever rose up against the government, people like myself and my other cronies in the government would just nuke them, so they better never do it. That guy, that's Eric Swalwell. Well, this time he said something I think is even more heinous than that. I'm no fan of this guy. I will say that right off the bat. I think that every time he gets on stage and opens his mouth, the only thing that comes out is just endless garbage. It's just platitudes and pandering. He never says anything of any value. He never proposes anything of any merit. He just gets up there and plays the savior of the far left. He only says things that will inflate his own personal value, will advance his own personal career by pandering to the people that will vote for him. That's all he ever does. He never says anything of value. Everything that comes out of his mouth, like I said, is garbage. And you know what else is garbage? He is garbage. He is a garbage human being. Like I said, he said something this time that I think is even worse than what he said the first time when he said they would just nuke us if we ever stood up against the government. This time, he was not only mocking police officers, but he's gloating over the bodies of dead Texans. Texans that were killed this past week in one of the mass murders that occurred down there. Eric Swalwell took to the internet, and I don't twit on the twatter or twat on the Twitter or whatever the kids are saying these days. I know they're all about the Twitter, but I just don't do it. But I got an email sent to me which linked me to this guy's statement, and after I read it, I was just like, I actually have to tweet or twat or whatever because this is disgusting. And what he said was, in a very condescending way, of course, big shout out to all the civilian good guys with guns who saved lives in Odessa. You know who you are. Thanks a million. I mean, this was so heinous that even an old guy like myself had to respond. But in my response, I did try to find some common ground. I actually said, I do agree with one thing. It's too bad there aren't more people carrying, so this guy would have run into someone eventually with a carry gun. But I don't think that's the point he wanted me to agree with. This disgusting piece of trash is gloating over the fact that this guy was able to murder people because it supports his own political positions, his own agenda, his own plan to make himself important in politics. It caters to the people he wants to cater to, and he's happy it happened. You could tell. You don't make this kind of snarky remark without a little bit of giddiness behind it. You're giggling as you write it. You're disgusting. Why would you do this immediately after something like this happened? Are you really that self-absorbed that you don't see how disgusting this is? And let's examine the actual statement here. A couple of things you say here, or actually the thing you say here is that no good guys stopped this guy. Well, the only civilian good guys this guy ever encountered that actually had a gun were the police officers at the beginning and at the end. At the end, those good guys with guns did stop him. And in the beginning, they failed. So are you mocking the police officers for failing in the beginning to stop him? Now, you might think you sheltered yourself from criticism here because you said civilian, but police officers are civilians. They are sworn civilians. So you're mocking them for not stopping this guy. And even if you didn't mean to mock the police officers, still, you're taking great pleasure in the fact that something happened that supports your political agenda. No decent person would do that. I have very strong political opinions. I would never take joy in other people's misery because it furthers my opinion or reinforces my beliefs. And here's the bad thing. I don't even think they're beliefs of yours. They're just a means to an end, and this supported your means to an end. And that's disgusting. Doing that is disgusting. I just can't believe this. And also, let's look at the fact that this wasn't a case of some guy confronting a bunch of people and maybe there was someone there that could be armed and stop him. This was a guy speeding along in a truck firing indiscriminately at people. And a van also at the end of the thing. But that's not something you can fight back against, no matter how well armed you are. That's just a danger of a free society that you have to accept, because what were they supposed to do? Even the police officers couldn't stop him until they caught him. Someone would have had to catch him to stop him. You couldn't stand your ground and fight him because he wasn't standing any ground. He was speeding by. So your statement, just from a tactical standpoint, is ridiculous. So I don't understand what point you were trying to make other than the fact that you're so happy this happened. Because you like to point out that the good guys didn't stop him. Because you like to support that whole a ridiculous notion that good guys never stop the bad guys. It's all up to the government. You got to trust us. The same government that he was saying would nuke us if we ever stood up to them. So that's what he's saying. But here's the thing. That's garbage also. That's just a load of malarkey. Because good guys stop bad guys all the time. All the time. Bad guys get stopped before they get to be famous. Just as an example here, a hypothetical example. If some guy ends up going to the mall and murdering a lot of people, and then you hear the story later like, well, he started out his day by murdering his neighbors and then went to the mall and murdered all these people. That's national news for a week or 2 weeks or more. It only matters if he kills, as long as he just kills at least 4 people, they're thrilled because they can call it a mass murder. But if that same story is that morning when he went over to start his spree by taking out the neighbor he had a grudge against, that neighbor was ready for him and took him out, well, that wouldn't be a national story. That'd be a little blurb on the news at the most. It might be a local story, but probably not even that. So people love to use this fallacy that because you didn't hear about it, it didn't happen, to try to promote their false agenda with good guys never stop bad guys. Happens all the time. That's garbage. And like I said, what else is garbage? Eric Swalwell. He's garbage. This guy needs to be out of Congress. We've had people removed from Congress because 20 years ago they took a joke photograph where there's someone 20 feet behind them and they're like, honk, honk. That didn't offend me at all. I mean, some women might be offended by it, but it was a joke. It may be in bad taste, whatever. But it was many years ago, and it wasn't actually assaulting anybody. And it wasn't actually intentionally offensive. I can't see how this statement he made is anything other than intentionally offensive. It's mocking. It's gloating. It's masochistic almost. It's like he takes pleasure in pain, because if he pretends like this kind of thing hurts him, then he must love it. It's definitely sadistic. He likes to see people suffer to promote his own interests. So I just can't tolerate this guy. He, like I said, is human garbage. I don't have a lot of hope for politicians. Like I said, this guy is just pandering. He just gets up there and bleats about things that just only serve his own interest and really mean nothing. But that's common in politics. A lot of politics are a bunch of vapid, pandering morons. And this guy's no exception. The exception is, I don't think most of them are hateful, vile people that would make a statement like this guy made. I think politicians should be held to a higher standard than this. People that are elected representatives of their state or their congressional district or whatever should be held to a higher standard than this. And Eric Swalwell, no matter how you slice it, does not meet that standard.
Oops.
Go ahead. It's a lady at 46 South Road. 46 South Road.
Greenfield. Station 1 call, retone that please. 10-4. Got the floor to go to that location also. This is 1-9, is that correct?